Episode 46. Does your face still hurt? From the moment Zaid Radcliffe made that phone call, Otis Radcliffe sat on the sofa in the chairman's office, waiting for the good news. All morning he was immersed in joy, knowing that once Sky Reed was taken down, the position of project head would fall onto his head. Not only would he be able to make a fortune, but he could also logically drive Quella Radcliffe out of the Radcliffe Group, killing two birds with one stone. Ring-a-ling, the instant the office landline rang, Otis Radcliffe almost reflexively dashed over. Sit down. It's Leonardo Leopold's call, and you're not qualified to answer it. Zaid Radcliffe scolded his disappointing grandson, and slowly picked up the telephone on the table. Brother Leopold, it's Zaid. How's the matter I mentioned to you this morning after the call? Zaid Radcliffe provided Leonardo Leopold with ample information, including how Sky Reed, disregarding internal opinions within the Radcliffe Group, insisted on appointing Quella Radcliffe as the project head. With this information in hand, and Leonardo Leopold's maneuvers, taking down Sky Reed would be a piece of cake. Mr. Radcliffe, you're trying to kill me. Leonardo Leopold's angry roar came through from the other end of the phone. We've been friends for decades, and you push me into a pit of fire. I truly regret it. How did I come to know a bastard like you? Hearing Leonardo Leopold's response, the smile gradually faded from Zaid Radcliffe's face, replaced by bewilderment. Grandpa, was it a success? Otis Radcliffe excitedly asked from the side. He couldn't wait to humiliate Quella Radcliffe and didn't want to wait for a moment longer. Go out first. Zaid Radcliffe covered the mouthpiece and whispered, I'll tell you the outcome in a moment. He sensed something was amiss from Leonardo Leopold's tone just now. There might have been a slight mishap. Okay, I'll wait for your good news. Otis Radcliffe nodded, gleefully walking out. As soon as he left the door, he eagerly took out his phone and sent Quella Radcliffe a message. Your old flame has been taken down. Wait to be fired from the company. Having done all this, Otis Radcliffe felt particularly at ease, especially his face, swollen from Julius Reed's slap, seemed to ease a bit. But inside the chairman's office, Zaid Radcliffe's mood was the complete opposite. Mr. Leopold, take it easy. What exactly happened? Those materials should have been enough to take down Sky Reed. He couldn't imagine what unforeseen event could have occurred. Mr. Radcliffe, all this was a video cook's doing. Sky Reed is just his puppet. Today, not only was I scolded fiercely, but I'm afraid I won't be able to stay in Gonzales City anymore. You've really killed me. Leonardo Leopold growled through the phone, gritting his teeth in fury. After being ousted, relying on his connections from over a decade's work at the Titan Group, he inquired around and found out that this whole affair was orchestrated by a video cook, and Sky Reed was merely a puppet. To go in front of his own boss and snitch on his boss, wasn't that courting death? At this thought, his teeth itched from hatred. The Titan Group wielded massive influence in Gonzales City. Nobody dared to defy a video cook's words, since the richest man of Gonzales City declared that no one would dare to employ him there. He definitely couldn't stay any longer. What on the other end of the phone? Zaid Radcliffe was equally dumbfounded. No matter what, he didn't expect the man behind his granddaughter to be a video cook. Mr. Leopold, you didn't misspeak. After getting me in this mess, you still hope to come out unscathed? Just to be clear, I've reported this whole affair truthfully. Wait and bear the wrath of the Titan Group. Right after saying this, Leonardo Leopold angrily hung up the phone. My goodness. Zaid Radcliffe leaned back in his chair, with cold sweat streaming down his forehead. He knew he had stirred up a hornet's nest. In Gonzales City, anyone who dared to offend the Titan Group had to be prepared for bankruptcy and closure. Although the Radcliffe Group was also quite large in scale, it stood no chance against the colossus that was the Titan Group. Ring-a-ling. Just then, the phone rang again. Immersed in fear, Zaid Radcliffe shuddered at the sound. Seeing the caller he hastily extended his trembling hand and pressed the speakerphone button. Chairman Otis, you're quite something. I've been talking you up, and yet you stabbed me in the back. Sky Reed's indifferent voice came through the receiver. Our partnership is now terminated. According to the contract, you need to compensate Titan Group 20 billion yuan. Wait for the lawyer's letter. After saying this, Sky Reed hung up the phone. 20 billion. Zaid Radcliffe blinked, his mind going blank. The total assets of the Radcliffe Group were only around 10 billion. They couldn't possibly come up with such an amount, not even by selling everything they owned. Secretary Leocadia, bring the contract we signed with Titan Group to my office immediately without time to think further. Zaid Radcliffe picked up the phone to call Secretary Leocadia, responsible for handling contracts. He had never looked into the details of the contract for the collaboration with Titan Group. The general manager, Otis Radcliffe, had been in charge of that. Zaid had not interfered. After all, partnering with Titan Group was like a pie falling from the sky. How could the Radcliffe Group consider otherwise? Soon, Secretary Leocadia entered the office with a document in hand and pushed the contract towards Zaid Radcliffe. At that moment, an overwhelmed Zaid Radcliffe snatched the contract and began flipping through it rapidly. When he came to the page about compensation, he was petrified. Should the project be delayed due to reasons attributable to the Radcliffe Group, they must compensate Titan Group 20 billion yuan. Leonardo Leopold had already said over the phone that he would lay everything out. That meant this bill would surely land on the Radcliffe Group, and no matter how he fought it in court, he was bound to lose. A video cook might even sue him for corporate espionage. Chairman, are you alright? Secretary Leocadia asked, noticing Zaid Radcliffe's pale face and distant look. Call Otis in, Zaid Radcliffe said weakly, resting his head in his hand. He felt as if all his strength had been drained, and he might faint in the office at any moment. All right, just a moment. Without asking any further, Secretary Leocadia exited the office and called Otis Radcliffe, who was standing outside the door, to come in. Grandfather, did we succeed? We owe it all to you that we managed to handle things so smoothly this time. As he entered the office, Otis Radcliffe asked eagerly, Grandson, does your face still hurt? Zaid Radcliffe took a deep breath, slowly stood up, and walked over to Otis Radcliffe. 11 TTE. The handprint left by Julius Reed had faded quite a bit, but the traces were still visible. It doesn't hurt anymore, as long as we can drive Quella Radcliffe out. Taking a beating is nothing, though he felt something was off with his grandfather. Otis Radcliffe didn't give it much thought. His mind was fully occupied with revenge against Quella Radcliffe and Julius Reed. He had no space for anything else. Slap. Zaid Radcliffe, summoning all his strength, viciously slapped Otis across the face. Grandfather, why are you hitting me? Otis Radcliffe's eyes widened in disbelief, unable to understand what had just happened. You're good for nothing but ruining things. I swear you won't rest until you've driven me to my death. Zaid Radcliffe trembled with fury as he pointed at Otis and berated. You think Quella and Sky Reed are together? Let me tell you, that man is the richest of Gonzales City, a video cook. Now Titan Group has completely turned against us, demanding 20 billion in compensation. What? Otis Radcliffe, lying on the ground, couldn't help but swallow hard, momentarily forgetting about his swollen face. Episode 47. The Old Master arrives. Time flew to 4 in the afternoon. Knox Ridge and her family sat on the sofa, their faces filled with anxious expressions. The day was nearly over, yet the company hadn't made a single phone call, and this made Knox Ridge restless. Julius Reed, you haven't heard the last of this from me today. She picked up her phone and, after hesitating for a while, finally decided to call Zaid Radcliffe. As long as she could pin everything on Julius Reed, Knox Ridge felt that Quella Radcliffe could still return to the company. Thud. Thud. Just then, a series of knocks sounded at the door. Julius Reed had been leaning by the door all afternoon, so the moment the immerking began, he was the first to turn around and open the door. Where's the chairman? The first person he saw was Otis Radcliffe. Behind him were several executives from Radcliffe Group, all of whom didn't seem too pleased. But that made sense. They were used to calling the shots and now had to come and apologize, which would sour anyone's mood. Oh, it's Otis Radcliffe. Come in and take a seat. Seeing Otis Radcliffe, Knox Ridge quickly stood up. She knew that Otis Radcliffe was Zaid Radcliffe's favorite grandson and also the general manager of Radcliffe Group. If she could humble herself in front of Otis Radcliffe, there might be a chance for Quella Radcliffe to return to the company. Aunt, I won't sit down. Is Quella at home? Otis Radcliffe stood sideways, doing his best to hide the swollen side of his face. I'm asking you, where's the chairman? Julius Reed blocked the doorway, coldly staring at Otis Radcliffe. He had said before that if Zaid Radcliffe didn't come to request personally, Quella would definitely not return. What are you doing? Get out of my way. Seeing her son-in-law adding to the chaos, Knox Ridge instantly became furious. Just when she was worried about finding a way out of the situation, Julius Reed had the audacity to block Otis Radcliffe at the door. Answer me, ignoring his mother-in-law's rage. Julius Reed stared at Otis Radcliffe again with penetrating eyes. The chairman is very busy, so he asked me to come over. Otis Radcliffe suppressed the anger in his heart, trying to stay calm. He had thought he could slap Julius Reed soundly, but instead, he got beaten up, and now he had to present his face for more. But don't worry, I will definitely cooperate with Quella in the future, and no one will dare to trouble her again. Otis Radcliffe patted his chest, swearing solemnly, I swear to heaven before coming here. Zaid Radcliffe had made it clear that if he couldn't get Quella to come back today, Otis would have to leave Radcliffe Group. Oh my, look at what you're saying. Aren't we all part of the Radcliffe family? Isn't it good to look out for each other? Knox Ridge's eyes sparkled when she heard what Otis Radcliffe said. It seemed like he was here to invite Quella back. At this thought, she gave Julius Reed a strange look. Could it be that her son-in-law really had such divine skills to make the normally arrogant Otis Radcliffe come to invite personally? Quella, come over here. Knox Ridge quickly turned around to call for Quella Radcliffe. Seeing a perfect opportunity, you can't miss such a chance to step down. Sit down. Just as Quella was about to stand up, Julius Reed said coldly, have you forgotten what I told you with that? Quella sat back down. Although Quella looked calm, her heart was already tumultuous. She knew exactly who Otis Radcliffe was, arrogant and scheming to oust her from the company. Now that he was coming to invite her personally, it meant he had likely been pressured by Zaid Radcliffe. Because within the entire Radcliffe family, only Zaid Radcliffe's words would Otis heed. Oh, you too. Knox Ridge was about to blow up, but Julius Reed interrupted her. I do as I say. If the chairman doesn't have that sincerity, then please leave. Quella's letter of resignation will be on the chairman's desk tomorrow morning. Julius Reed looked indifferently at Otis Radcliffe, completely ignoring the other's livid face. Julius Reed, don't go too far. Let me tell you. Today, bang. Before Otis Radcliffe could finish his words, Julius Reed suddenly kicked out a foot in front of the Radcliffe Group's executives. In half an hour, if the chairman and all the staff of the group aren't here, then get ready to receive Quella Radcliffe's resignation letter. After saying this, he forcefully closed the door. The executives of the Radcliffe Group outside were completely dumbfounded. What's going on here? Hadn't General Manager Otis Radcliffe always wished for Quella Radcliffe to leave the company? Now that she was offering to resign of her own accord, why was he still bringing people over to retain her? And Julius Reed's attitude, why was it so assertive? Was this still the same useless son-in-law they knew before? What the hell are you looking at? Otis Radcliffe struggled to his feet in the stairwell, trembling with rage. But eventually, he took out his cell phone and called Zaid Radcliffe. Grandpa, Julius Reed kicked me down the stairs. If you don't bring all the employees of the group here within half an hour, he says Quella will resign immediately. Good. Wait for me. After a brief response, Zaid Radcliffe hung up. But inside the room, Knox Ridge and Burl Radcliffe were cursing Julius Reed like madmen. Zaid Radcliffe was their father, and they knew very well what his temperament was like. Although they did not know by what means Julius Reed had managed to get Otis Radcliffe to come and apologize. The idea of their father personally visiting was sheer fantasy. Zaid Radcliffe was decisive and authoritative in the group. There was no way he would do something so demeaning to his own dignity. And besides, Julius Reed's demand was to bring the entire staff of the group, which was outright impossible. You've completely blocked Quella Radcliffe's return to the group. Get out. Get out of my sight now. I don't ever want to see you again. Knox Ridge was so angry her teeth itched, but remembering how Julius Reed had just attacked, she dared not push too far. After all, even a cornered rabbit will bite. You good for nothing. What kind of love potion has she given you since she dared not strike Julius Reed? She turned around and began to scold Quella instead. Her daughter had always been obedient to her, but these past 2 days, she had begun siding with Julius Reed and going against her. After 4:30, I will take Quella and leave. Julius Reed looked up at Knox Ridge and said indifferently, this family was toxic, and he had long wanted to leave. Now that Knox Ridge had brought it up, he could just ride the wave and leave this place. As for the house, Aaron Jackson had already bought it and had it fully furnished. They could move in with just their bags. Hey, I told you to get lost. Knox Ridge stood with her hands on her hips, sneering. Where are you going to sleep? On the streets she knew very well that her son-in-law Julius Reed was penniless. I'm going with him. Quella Radcliffe sat on the sofa and spoke gravely. You. Knoxbridge was so furious she clenched her teeth. But before she could lose her temper, there came another knock on the door. Half an hour had quietly slipped by in the midst of the quarrel. Is Quella at home when the door opened? Zaid Radcliffe stood smiling at the entrance. Dad, why are you here? Knoxbridge trembled at the sight of the chairman of the Radcliffe Group. She thought Zaid Radcliffe was there to settle scores. Since the chairman has deigned to come, we might as well leave now. Julius Reed walked to the sofa, took Quella's hand, and headed towards the door. Hey, Knoxbridge was about to shout, but Julius Reed cut her off. I said, when the time comes, we will naturally leave. Julius Reed. Zaid Radcliffe's face darkened. He had brought all the company's employees, yet Julius Reed was insisting on taking Quella away. Was this playing him for a fool? Tomorrow, Quella will come to work. As he walked past Zaid Radcliffe, Julius Reed stopped, his voice firm. After finishing his statement, he took Quella's hand and, under the gaze of the Radcliffe Group employees, strode into the elevator. Stop right there. Zaid Radcliffe trembled with anger. Episode 48. Cool sister. Why call me to halt? To humiliate you. After hearing Zaid Radcliffe's furious roar, Julius Reed slowly turned around, his expression indifferent. 3 years ago, had he not offered help, this family head of the Radcliffe family would probably not be alive today. That kind of obstinate illness, under the heavens, aside from the 10,000 Mountain Alliance, no one could cure. Yet Zaid Radcliffe had the audacity to be ungrateful and tried every possible way to kick him out of the house after his recovery. The epitome of a petty person. How can you talk to the chairman like that? Seeing Julius Reed's indifferent tone, Otis Radcliffe hurriedly stood up. He just had a bellyful of stifled anger and now wanted his grandfather to stand up for him. Let's go. Julius Reed didn't even cast a glance at Otis Radcliffe, grabbed Quella Radcliffe's hand, and walked out, completely ignoring this heir of the Radcliffe family. Asking for help should have the appearance of asking for help. What was this supposed to be? A threat? From the moment his memories awoke, the doomsday of the Radcliffe family members had been destined to arrive. More than 3 years of humiliation would not end just like that. Knoxbridge was scared out of her wits. On normal days, the old man's word was law, and he held absolute authority in the Radcliffe family. Who would dare to confront the family head? But today, her son-in-law, for reasons unknown, even dared to clash with the most authoritative person in the Radcliffe family. Dad, this has nothing to do with Quella. It's all Julius Reed's idea. Now that things had come to this, Knoxbridge mercilessly abandoned Julius Reed. She felt that, after all, Quella was the Radcliffe family's granddaughter, and the old master wouldn't go too far no matter what. Is that so? Then I really want to ask my dear granddaughter what she means. Zaid Radcliffe's face was gloomy as he asked in a deep voice, are you coming back to the group with me? Or are you leaving with him, having steered the Radcliffe Group for decades? Zaid Radcliffe had never been so humble before. Usually, members of the family and the group would be somewhat fearful of him. But today was different. He personally led all the employees to apologize, and instead, he received a cold shoulder. Even the son-in-law, who was considered a good-for-nothing by everyone, dared to challenge him. If he didn't assert his authority as the family head now, how could he face anyone in the group in the future? Is this your attitude for an apology visit? Julius Reed placed Quella Radcliffe behind him and chuckled lightly. I've changed my mind now. If he let them go so easily, they would probably still act against Quella Radcliffe in the shadows. What did you say? Zaid Radcliffe's eyebrows were tightly furrowed, unsure of the meaning behind those words. Smack. Before everyone could react, Julius Reed slapped Otis Radcliffe across the face. The most beloved young master of the Radcliffe family, the future successor of the Radcliffe Group, was slapped to the ground in front of everyone. The employees' eyes widened, even suspecting they were hallucinating. Their impression of Julius Reed, the son-in-law who came into the family, was still stuck in the past. That useless man who wouldn't fight back when hit, nor talk back when scolded. At that time, anyone could step on this son-in-law's head. You dare hit me? Otis Radcliffe already had a bellyful of rage, and now, being slapped in front of all the group's employees, his fury was imaginable. Unfortunately, all the slaps were on one side of his face. making that half of his face swell like a pig's head. You can try, but I assure you, Quella Radcliffe will resign immediately. Julius Reed, with his hands behind his back, looked at Otis Radcliffe with an extremely disdainful gaze. Since he had started stepping on them, he would do it thoroughly, and incidentally, let the people in the group know what would be the consequences of offending Quella Radcliffe. You think I wouldn't dare seeing the other party's mockery? Otis Radcliffe's anger immediately reached its peak. In the Radcliffe family, he was the young master everyone doted on. In the group, he was the general manager, second only to the chairman. But today at Quella Radcliffe's home, he was slapped fiercely in front of all the employees. A blatant humiliation. I'm going to fight you. Otis Radcliffe's eyes were red as he swung his fists and marched towards Julius Reed. If you dare hit me, I'll kneel in front of you right away. Facing the aggressive Otis Radcliffe, Julius Reed was not the least bit afraid, instead stretching out his finger and beckoning him with a hook of his hand. Provocative, arrogant. The employees of the Radcliffe group all widened their eyes, watching everything unfold intently. Good. Today I'll make you kneel before me like a dog. Otis Radcliffe's mouth curled slightly as he clenched his fist. Julius. Quella Radcliffe, somewhat worried, moved closer, but was stopped by Julius Reed. Nearly everyone held their breath, watching silently, enough just as the atmosphere was becoming tense, and Otis Radcliffe was swinging his fist with a smile. Zaid Radcliffe let out a roar. He very much wanted to teach Julius Reed a lesson, but could he? With just one word from Titan Group, the industry he had been running for decades would vanish into thin air. By then, not to mention himself. How would these people of the Radcliffe clan make a living? Most of them were mediocre, living off the family's industries, waiting to die. Grandfather Otis Radcliffe slightly raised his eyebrows, looking at Zaid Radcliffe with great puzzlement. The behavior of Julius Reed today was seen by all. It was a direct slap in the face for both of them. Knowing his grandfather's temper, he was clear as his grandson. Facing such provocation, how could his usually hot-tempered grandfather have endured? Don't say any more. Zaid Radcliffe took a deep breath, the corners of his mouth twitching involuntarily. Julius Reed, leave yourself an out. I have already come here as you demanded. You can let Quella return to the company now. Right the moment he finished speaking, the employees of Radcliffe Group exchanged glances, shock apparent in their eyes. Such a fuss, just to have Quella come back to the company. Wasn't Quella's resignation what they had always hoped to see? That way, Otis could naturally take over as project manager. But how could these employees know that Titan Group was like a giant sword hanging over the head of Radcliffe Group? A slight misstep could lead to complete obliteration. Yes, Julius Reed nodded, then suddenly swung out a slap. Slap. A clear imprint of fingers appeared once more on Otis's face. This slap is for my wife. For 3 years, you have constantly thought about kicking her out, but do you have that ability? In terms of ability, you are no match for her. In terms of character, you are leagues behind. Slap. Before Otis could react, the second slap had already landed on his face. The chicken soup I painstakingly simmered. You actually fed it to the dogs from today on. If you dare to be disrespectful to me again, you'll regret it beyond belief. Julius Reed, you. Slap. The third slap was so powerful it knocked Otis to the ground. If you dare to disrespect us again, the consequences are something you absolutely cannot afford. Julius Reed stepped directly onto his chest, his gaze sharp as knives fixed on Otis. The surrounding employees of Radcliffe Group had their mouths wide open, too frightened to make a sound. Knox Ridge and Burl Radcliffe were petrified on the spot. Was this the same son-in-law they used to bully on a daily basis? Thinking this, the old couple broke out in a cold sweat. The Julius Reed of now was like a fierce tiger, exuding a killing air. Julius Reed's Zaid Radcliffe slammed his cane hard onto the ground. You dare? What can't I dare? Julius Reed slowly took his foot off Otis, looking at Zaid Radcliffe with a sneer. Make him kneel on the ground and call Quella sister. It was a death blow to the spirit. He intended to completely shatter Otis's dignity. You're playing with fire. Zaid Radcliffe swallowed hard, his eyes brimming with coldness. The face of the Radcliffe family was completely trampled today by Julius Reed. Has Titan Group spoken to you already? Julius Reed asked with a faint smile. Upon hearing this, Zaid Radcliffe's heart sank. His face turned even more ashen. Kneel down finally. He took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. Grandfather Otis roared in anger, not understanding what his grandfather feared about Julius Reed. Kneel down, Zaid Radcliffe roared again, his whole body trembling with rage. Don't make me personally break your legs. Hearing Zaid Radcliffe's words, Otis clenched his teeth so hard they nearly cracked. At last, he turned around and knelt before Quella. Sister. Episode 49. The explanation you wanted. When Quella Radcliffe left from her home, it was already past 5 in the afternoon. There was less than an hour left before the Three Blade Group would come to ransom their man. After instructing Erin Jackson to take Quella Radcliffe to her new home, Julius Reed hurried to Westlake Pier with Erin Jackson. Westlake Pier used to be an important transport hub for Gonzales City, but it gradually fell into disuse after the new pier was built. Apart from a few abandoned warehouses, there were hardly any people around, and all kinds of shady deals often took place here. Bang! After Julius Reed kicked open the iron door of the warehouse, the first thing he smelled was a pungent rotten scent. Erin Jackson had already arranged for his men to hook up electric lights, so the inside of the warehouse wasn't dark. Tied up on a chair at the back, Sonny Ridge was bound hand and foot, looking utterly lifeless. It was hard for others to imagine that the deputy manager of the Gonzales City branch of the Three Blade Group could end up tied up in a dilapidated warehouse like this. When our boss gets here, none of you will escape. Watching Julius Reed and Erin Jackson, the corners of Sonny Ridge's mouth twitched uncontrollably. Right now, he would have given anything to flay them alive and feed on their flesh. As the deputy manager of the Gonzales City branch of the Three Blade Group, Sonny Ridge was used to respect wherever he went, but now he lay on the chair like a useless man, his hands destroyed. Is that so? I wish your dreams come true. Julius Reed smiled faintly, hands clasped behind his back. The Three Blade Group dared to meddle in these murky waters. They would have to pay the price. Boss. 3 new martial arts gyms opened in Gonzales City today. Standing behind him, Erin Jackson murmured softly, my guys checked it out. They're Theodore Kensington's men. The moment Black Bear was eliminated, Erin Jackson knew that Theodore Kensington wouldn't just let things slide. The influence of the Kensington family was massive, and Theodore Kensington himself was universally known. Keep a close eye on them. If they're looking for death, I don't mind obliging them. Julius Reed was unconcerned. A mere Theodore Kensington wasn't qualified to challenge him. Don't worry, boss. The surrounding area of their gyms is already filled with our eyes. If anything stirs, I'll inform you immediately. After mingling in Gonzales City for 3 years, Erin Jackson knew Theodore Kensington's personality well. Since Black Bear had been killed in Gonzales City, Theodore Kensington would surely investigate to the end. Especially, the establishment of these 3 martial arts gyms seemed too coincidental. Send some men to protect my wife. With all that's been happening lately, I'm always concerned about her safety. Julius Reed spoke thoughtfully with his hands crossed behind him. Today, he had slapped Otis Radcliffe's face in front of everyone. For someone of Otis Radcliffe's temperament, there was no way he would let bygones be bygones. And Zaid Radcliffe would likely take action too. He himself was not afraid, but he had to consider Quella Radcliffe's safety. Rest assured, boss. My elite men are protecting the young madam around the clock, Erin Jackson assured. Erin Jackson had already arranged for his people to protect Quella Radcliffe day and night. His network in Gonzales City was also very efficient. If any of those people made the slightest move, he would be the first to get the news. The time should be about right now. Julius Reed checked his watch. If Morris Yarrow doesn't want to come, then just throw him into the river to feed the fish. You dare. By offending the Three Blade Group, you're signing your own death warrant sitting in the chair. Sonny Ridge felt his heart sink while he silently prayed for the people from the Three Blade Group to hurry up. When he found out that the person who had captured him was Erin Jackson, fear filled his heart. As the deputy manager of the Gonzales City branch, he had spent several years here. He had experienced Erin Jackson's terror firsthand, far more intimately than those who were far away in the Five River province. From his initial arrival in Gonzales City to consolidating his hold on the industry, Erin Jackson had only taken a few months. Moreover, none of the companies that opposed him met a good end. But since the Three Blade Group has a strong backing and also avoids conflict with Erin Jackson, these past 3 years have been fairly peaceful. However, everyone knows that Boss Yarrow will make his move sooner or later. Such a juicy piece of Gonzales City. Countless eyes are watching. What Sunny Ridge hadn't expected was that Aaron Jackson would act before Morris Yarrow, and his first move was a killer one. The Three Blade Group. I just so happened to have an account to settle. Julius Reed turned to look at the warehouse door and muttered to himself. They're already here. No sooner had his voice faded away than a staff member ran into the warehouse in a panic, gasping for breath as he shouted, "Big brother, Jared Cook is here with people." Jared Cook is the manager of the Gonzales City branch, usually in charge of the overall coordination. Now that Sunny Ridge had been captured, he had to step in to resolve the situation. This incident had a significant impact. The entire Three Blade Group was criticizing Jared Cook for his inaction, for allowing the deputy manager to be taken away from his own company. Morris Yarrow didn't come. Julius Reed raised an eyebrow and muttered to himself, "But when I think about it, it makes sense. How could this old fox show up so easily?" "Big brother, do we take action directly?" Aaron Jackson asked from the side. "Since Morris Yarrow didn't show, let's break Sunny Ridge's legs first," Julius Reed said lightly, but these words made Sunny Ridge break out in a cold sweat. He knew that the other party was not joking. "Aaron Jackson, we do not interfere with each other, so why detain the deputy manager of the Three Blade Group?" Just then, a deep voice came from the entrance of the warehouse, followed by a flurry of footsteps. "Jared Cook, manager of the Three Blade Group's Gonzales City branch, has come to meet you." A middle-aged man in a suit walked into the warehouse, slightly short in stature. "Bridger Davenport of the Three Blade Group has come to meet you." Next to Jared Cook was a man wearing glasses, clearly shrewd and calculating. "So it's Brother Reed and Brother Cook." Aaron Jackson stepped forward with his hands clasped in a salute. "My apologies for not greeting you from afar." He had also heard of Bridger Davenport's name. Being Morris Yarrow's right-hand man and now appearing alongside Jared Cook indicated that the Three Blade Group was taking this matter very seriously. "Save me!" At that moment, Sunny Ridge shouted loudly for help while tied to a chair. "Sunny Ridge, how did you end up like this?" The deputy manager of the majestic Three Blade Group was now bloodied and leaning against a chair, his hands beaten beyond breaking. Seeing this scene, Jared Cook's pupils shrank, his voice tinged with a chill. "Aaron Jackson, you'd better give me an explanation." "An explanation?" Julius Reed walked languidly to Sunny Ridge's side and spoke. "He cheated at a bet in your bar. As the boss, he stooped to cheating. According to the bar rules, breaking both hands isn't too much." Right as he spoke, he turned around and said, "Since you think I owe you an explanation, I'll give you one." Crack. Julius Reed suddenly kicked out, breaking both of Sunny Ridge's legs from the knees. "Is that explanation enough? You're asking for it." Jared Cook's face darkened as he made to charge with his men. "Wait a moment." Bridger Davenport stopped him and looked at Julius Reed. "Brother, your face is unfamiliar to me. May I know your esteemed name? Did you bring the money I want?" Julius Reed didn't answer Bridger Davenport's question, instead asking about the ransom. Episode 50. Breach of Trust. "Aaron Jackson, why are you making an enemy of my Three Blade Group?" Seeing that Julius Reed didn't bother with him, Bridger Davenport simply chose not to answer. As one of the core members ranked in the top 5 of the Three Blade Group, he naturally felt indignant being ignored by a nobody. "My brother is asking you a question. Can't you hear?" But Aaron Jackson didn't give him the pleasure of acknowledgement. Instead, he asked sternly with a calm yet fierce look on his face. Outside, Julius Reed and Aaron Jackson addressed each other as brothers. That WAV Julius Reed's identity as the young master of the 10,000 Mountain Alliance remained concealed, and if an enemy came seeking revenge, Aaron Jackson could step in front to shield him. In plainer terms, he was the one to take the hits. Hearing Aaron Jackson's words, even if Bridger Davenport could keep his cool, rage inevitably kindled in his heart. Even though Gonzales City was indeed Aaron Jackson's turf, he himself was the second in command in the Three Blade Group, right after Morris Yarrow. Receiving such treatment now, even a clay Buddha would harbor a trace of anger. "Aaron Jackson, don't go too far." Bridger Davenport stepped forward and said, "While it's true that you have many enterprises here in Gonzales City, my Three Blade Group also has a stake in this place. If you want to leave safely today." No sooner had he finished his sentence than the figures clad in black at the warehouse entrance all turned their gaze to Aaron Jackson, seemingly ready to rip him to shreds. Upon receiving the message, Bridger Davenport had already sent people to watch Westlake Wharf. closely monitoring every move of Aaron Jackson and his group. However, their actions were quite unexpected. He had thought that in Gonzales City, Aaron Jackson would have many people lying in ambush here. But Jared Cook's men had been guarding this place for a full day and night, without spotting so much as a ghost's shadow. It wasn't until past 5 in the afternoon that they discovered Aaron Jackson arriving with the injured Sunny Ridge in tow. Arrogant. Presumptuous. This was the most reasonable explanation Bridger Davenport could think of. If you underestimate your enemy, then you must pay the price. The capability of the Three Blade Group's branch in Gonzales City was significant, only suppressed by Aaron Jackson. It hadn't been able to expand rapidly. After arriving at the Gonzales City branch, together with Jared Cook, Bridger Davenport came to West Lake Wharf with a murderous aura. Since there was a complete fallout, there was no need to consider other consequences anymore. Faced with the aggressive questioning now, all Bridger Davenport wanted to do was kill. I'll ask one last time. Did you bring the ransom? Julius Reed stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching Bridger Davenport with utter indifference. If Morris Yarrow had not arrived, then he would have to strike the Three Blade Group hard, to keep them in line for a while. After all, the Three Blade Group was not something that could be eliminated overnight. Moreover, he had just awakened his memory and didn't wish to be discovered by others with ulterior motives. Ransom? Am I hearing you right? Someone dares to ask me for money in this world? Bridger Davenport laughed aloud, his lips curving into a slight sneer. Even if you have the life to take it, do you have the life to spend it? You think I could let you walk out alive after crippling Deputy Manager Sunny Ridge in front of me? His men were stationed right outside the door. Even if Aaron Jackson's people arrived, they couldn't burst in. And Morris Yarrow had long made it clear that he wanted Aaron Jackson taken out right here. Bridger Davenport had thought a fierce battle would unfold here, but to his surprise, the other party brought only a few men, saving him a lot of trouble. So, you don't wish for him to keep his life? After hearing Bridger Davenport's response, Julius Reed turned around and slowly walked towards Sunny Ridge. Since there's a breach of trust, come collect your corpse. Save me. Having experienced Julius Reed's methods firsthand, Sunny Ridge became terrified seeing the other man approaching, breaking out in cold sweat and trembling all over. Stop. Don't you fear death? Sunny Ridge, after all, had followed Jared Cook for many years, and now hearing Julius Reed mention killing Sunny Ridge, the manager of the Gonzales City branch could no longer stand by and watch. If you dare touch him again, I'll make sure you have no place to be buried. Jared Cook had been a dominant figure in Gonzales City for many years, and his capabilities went without saying. As he spoke, the men in black behind him had already silently pressed forward. If we don't kill him, can we still live? Julius Reed turned around, offering a faint smile. This smile was extremely eerie, instilling a sense of fear in the members of the Three Blade Group. Indeed, they had come today with the intent to eradicate their problem at the root, and if they missed this chance, they would likely never find such a perfect opportunity to eliminate Aaron Jackson again. Jared Cook, a man who had weathered many storms, thought this way, but what he said was, if you release him and offer a sincere apology, we will not pursue this any further. After all, this is Gonzales City, and Aaron Jackson's people. We wouldn't trouble them, would we? As if fearing disbelief, Jared Cook waved his hand, signaling for the people of the Three Blade Group to retreat, leaving only himself, Bridger Davenport, and an elder in black. Now, do you believe us? The Three Blade Group has always wanted to be friends with Aaron Jackson, to operate in Gonzales City together. After all, there's money to be made by everyone. So why resort to violence and killing? If Aaron Jackson didn't know the kind of person Morris Yarrow was, he would have almost believed it. In the past, he had asked Morris Yarrow to pay a huge sum of money for his life and had made this boss of the Three Blade Group crawl out like a dog. How could such a grudge be easily forgotten? Moreover, Jared Cook was just a branch manager. How could he possibly make such a decision? Yet, Julius Reed's attention was focused on the elder. When there had been hundreds of people at the door earlier, he had not noticed the existence of this elder in black. Now, with only 3 of them left, the elder stood out all the more conspicuously. From him, Julius Reed sensed an aura of death, the kind left by someone who had killed too many. Only someone who had taken at least 100 lives could have such an aura. It seemed Jared Cook wanted to play dirty. Who is this elderly gentleman? Although he knew the score, He still pretended not to have realized it. Oh, this is my driver. Surely you're not frightened by an old man who couldn't even truss a chicken, right? I thought all of Aaron Jackson's subordinates were elite. Bridger Davenport deliberately provoked Julius Reed, aiming to keep the elder there. The elder's name was Noah Miller, and he had blood on his hands from his younger days abroad. Later, being chased and forced to return to his country, he ended up under Morris Yarrow's command. In the entire three-blade group, in terms of combatability, aside from those two freaks, Noah Miller was definitely the strongest. Morris Yarrow's decision to send him was a clear indication of his resolve to win at all costs. How could I? Since Manager Cook is so sincere, then I'll give Sunny Ridge back to you. I hope you'll keep your word and not give us any trouble, Julius Reed sneered inwardly. Helpless as a chicken? This elder was absolutely a revered figure in the three-blade group. But if Jared Cook wanted to play, then he would play along. Rest assured, when Jared Cook gives his word, he keeps it, although he wasn't sure of Julius Reed's identity. The fact that Aaron Jackson had nodded in silence meant he must be someone extraordinary. Jared Cook pretended to agree, reasoning that no living witnesses would remain. Who would then know of his promise? Dead men tell no tales. Go on. Your brothers are waiting for you. Julius Reed grabbed Sunny Ridge, who was seated in the chair, and thrust him violently towards Jared Cook. In that instant, his middle finger covertly struck the back of Sunny Ridge's neck. Old Miller, kill him the moment he caught Sunny Ridge, Bridger Davenport shouted loudly.